Okay, we're here with T. Graham Brown, and I must admit that I am a big fan of yours. And
Oh, thanks.
Me
yeah,
too.
I have to. I've been trying to remember uh, this concert that I saw you at, and it was in Las Vegas. And I'm not sure if you'll have memory of this one. It goes back to probably late '80s or so, and it was downtown, old Vegas, and I'm trying to remember the hotel, but it was almost like a little round pavilion inside the casino, and it wasn't very
Wow.
big, but you had jammed in your horn section and everybody in there. But I remember that concert. It stuck with me a long time. You'd have to ask if it's any of my top 10 concerts I've ever seen. That was certainly in the top 10.
Oh man, that's great. I don't remember that. The only Vegas, everything was happening so fast back then that
Yeah,
it's hard to remember everything. But I remember when Tanya Tucker and I were playing at the Hilton,
yeah.
and that's really the only thing I can remember, and I barely can remember that. But I don't remember the smaller place. I wonder what hotel it was.
Yeah, and I've been trying to think all day long, and my sister was there with me too, and I asked her, and she remembers it plain as day as well, but I just couldn't remember what hotel it was. Um,
What were you doing in Vegas?
We went
Were
there
you
for the fair
visiting?
convention, and be the rodeo would follow right after the fair convention, which one blend right into the other. The International Association of Fairs and Exhibitions would be out there. Everybody, like you'd have 200 or 300 acts in town during that. So I wonder if you're out there either going into the rodeo or showcasing for the fair convention or something like that.
That might have been it. That very well could have been right. I don't remember that, but that sounds exactly like what that would have been.
yeah. Anyways, it was great. The band was. I remember the band being stellar and
Thank
and
you.
and having the horn section, and it was great. So it's nice to have you on the podcast, and we were just chatting a little bit. You just did a little show in Florida, and probably your first show back with all this COVID stuff going on, and
Yeah, it is.
must have been nice to get back out on stage again and perform.
Yeah, it was great being on the bus. I missed being on the bus. We're going to do another show. I think we got two shows maybe in July. They're going to let us do. We had the biggest yearbook this year in years and years, and it was just dumb luck that we got shut down. But everybody did.
Yeah,
It's like not like we're the only ones, but we're it's just a weird time. I did the Grand Ole Opry the other night, and there was nobody in the building. I think there were 9 people in the building. They they had cameras. They were uh, broadcasting it,
yeah.
um, but Trace Adkins and Jason Crabb and I were on stage just looking out at that empty, 4,500 seat place. It was really strange. We had a lot of fun, but it was really weird.
I bet it was. I've seen a few of those online, and it's been great that they've been continuing with those shows. But it must be different from your view, not having that audience there. That's got to be really strange.
Yeah, well, we did a couple of Facebook Live shows that's kind of the same way, but it was still fun, and we had a lot of views on our Facebook Live things that we've done, and then we did one for the Navy on Memorial Day, which was a lot of fun. We got this little place called 615 Hideaway
Yeah,
in Nashville. A friend of ours has a little private, he has it rigged up for video things. So we were just basically sitting on stools and singing, but it's good. We got a lot of great response. I think people appreciate us doing that so they can, see something live.
yeah, you bet. And I think everyone's pretty anxious to get out and see entertainment again, just as much as entertainers are anxious to get out
Yeah.
and do it again. Hopefully, it doesn't get to the point where everything gets pulled back again and we have to restart
Yeah.
this whole cycle again. But it's certainly, Brian and I, we've talked about it a lot, and we promote a lot of shows across Canada and the States and that, and it's hit us really hard as well. But it's certainly going to change the market quite a bit, I think, and everything's going to be a little different after this is all
I
done.
guess, man, I don't really know what it's going to be like. I'm anxious to see.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's like, who knows?
Yeah.
Real strange thing is that when things are tough, people want to be entertained. And you're doing those Facebook shows and the Opry and stuff, the fans love it. I see all the comments everywhere that how much they appreciate being connected again, because music means a lot to a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people realize how big and important it is in their life, and it does.
Well, I think maybe you don't miss it till it's gone, and then you can kind of see what kind of void there is. One thing I miss, I always tell people I got the best job in the world. I get to make people happy for a living. So I just want to be out there. I have a lot of fun at shows. I'm having more fun now than I've ever had because I'm not out chasing a hit. I'm not having to visit radio stations every day. I'm not gone 300 days a year. It's just way more laid back, and I'm having a blast. And my wife Sheila travels with me now. Our son is grown up and moved out, and so we're in my wife and I are in a great place in our lives. And I do, man. Like I said, I miss getting on the bus and going and doing shows. I miss the band. It's just a lot of fun singing. I really enjoy doing it.
Well, that's great.
I've seen you up on stage recently, and I can tell you're having more fun than you ever had, and it's great.
Yeah, well, it's just I tell people sometimes I just wish they could feel what it feels like to be up there singing to people. It's wonderful. I think God blessed me with talent, and I'm just glad to be able to go out and do it. It's a wonderful thing.
It's an interesting comment how you mentioned how to explain to somebody how it feels, because I've spent a lot of time on stage, and it really is. It's hard to explain that feeling when you've had a great night and the crowd's with you, and you get off that stage and you have that rush feeling. I don't know how else how to explain that unless you've gone through it. It's pretty hard to imagine what that's like.
Yeah, I just tell people it's a great feeling. You can't explain it, but it is fun. How much fun it is.
Yeah.
It really is fun.
It's all the the other 22 hours of the day getting there and getting back.
Well, that's the thing, is there's an old saying, they don't pay us for the gig, they pay us to get to the gig.
Yeah.
So
that's very true. So let's go back a little bit, and first of all, I was going to mention your voice as a singer is very unique in the country field because it's a very bluesy, raspy, kind of old rock and roll-ish, all those things before you would say country. But your voice really sits in a perfect spot. And when you'd hear your song come on the radio, it was so identifiable to you. Was country something that you grew up on, or is it a mixture of a bunch of things?
Well, both sides of my family are farmers, and we have a farm in North Georgia that's been in our family for 7 generations. So I've always been around agriculture, and my father worked his way through the University of Georgia up in North Georgia, and he got a job selling seed with this company called DeKalb Seed Corn Company was the name of it. Anyway, his territory was South Georgia, and he was riding down Highway 41. This was before I-75 opened up, and he stopped in this little town to get a Coca-Cola, and he got to talking to some guys there, and he said, "This is where we're going to move to." So he moved us down there. It's a place called Araby, Georgia, 70 miles south of Macon, where Otis Redding's from.
Yeah.
And then Capricorn Records and all those people that were there, you know, Marshall Tucker Band, all, you know, Charlie Daniels was down there. The Allman Brothers lived in Macon. And anyway, there was this, the town was like 300 people.
Yeah.
So I listened to a station called WMJM. I remember, a little AM station. It was 1490 since 1940. That was their saying. And it was a 5,000 watt station that didn't have a format. They might play Johnny Cash. This would have been in the 60s.
Yeah.
They might play Johnny Cash, then the Beatles, then Aretha Franklin, and then Jerry Lee Lewis and the Stones or whoever. It was all over the place. So I heard every kind of music there was. And our house backed up to a railroad track. There was a railroad track that ran through this little town. And on one side of the track, all the white people lived. And on the other side of the track, all the black people lived. And our house didn't have air conditioning, so I would sleep with my head down at the foot of the bed next to a window that I would have open with a screen on it so I could get some air.
Yeah.
And the first band I ever heard was the black band at the black church right across the tracks, because it couldn't have been but a couple hundred yards at the most. And so that's the first live band I ever heard. So I kind of heard everything.
Yeah.
And it just got all mixed up. And then when I went to the University of Georgia, when I got to Georgia, I got with another guy and we started playing beach music, which is like, they call it Carolina beach music. I think it's very popular still to this day in South Carolina, North Carolina. But back then it was all the fraternity parties and sorority parties, and it was the Drifters, Coasters, the Platters,
yeah,
the Tams, Maurice Williams and the Zodiacs, Major Lance, all this old stuff. And that's how I paid my tuition at Georgia, was I would sing at night and get up and go to class in the morning. And I did that for a few years. And then I saw a documentary on David Allen Coe on the public broadcasting station. And I said, man, I want to be that guy. So I basically dropped out of society and grew my hair long and grew a beard and started doing country rock. And I did that for 3 years. And then Urban Cowboy, I had a kind of a unique thing going on. And then Urban Cowboy came out and everybody and his brother started a country band. And so I wasn't unique anymore. And I started doing I had a band called T. Graham Brown's Rack of Spam. And all that was just straight soul music. So it's basically, I did beach music for 3 years. I did kind of country rock for 3 years. I did straight soul music for 3 years. And my wife finished up her master's work at Georgia and came home to the farm one day and said, let's move to Nashville, because I'd always been chicking to move. I was scared to leave my little Athens, Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia comfort zone. But I asked her, she was going to vet school, and I asked her, what about vet school? And she said, well, I can always come back and go to vet school.
Yeah. She
said, if we don't move to Nashville, you will second guess yourself the rest of your life. So I'm glad she got me to come. You know, I don't think I would have come if she hadn't been on board for it. But so I moved to Nashville and I started singing demos, and a lot of, you know, my voice got around. And I think that when I signed with Capitol and cut a few songs, I think the deal was, this is getting back to your original question,
yeah,
is I think that the deal was, he is in Nashville, therefore he is country. I think that's the way everybody thought.
Yeah.
That's the way they released my records to country radio. Country radio played it. I didn't start out to be anything, you know, a country singer, R&B singer, rock singer. It's just that I was in Nashville and they released my stuff to country radio and they played it. had they released it to other formats, I don't know if it would have hit or not. I have no idea, but that's the way it worked.
Yeah. No, it makes total sense. It's like that saying, always stay true to yourself. And, you hear that from a lot of singers if they have advice for new singers or anybody starting. So stay the path and do what you do best. And it seemed to work for you very well.
Yeah, well, I just do my T. Graham Brown thing, man. I still got the same kind of band. I got a really cool, rocking, soulful band. I just do what I do, and people can put it wherever they want to put it. We're talking about going down to Muscle Shoals and doing a record down there. I cut my first 2 records down, albums in Muscle Shoals.
Did you?
Kind of thinking about going down there and doing like a tribute to Muscle Shoals kind of record. So
I've never been. They say there's a real vibe there when you record that you just don't get anywhere else. Did you feel that when you recorded?
Yeah. I hadn't been down there to record in a long time, but I had all the Muscle Shoals, the guys they call the Swampers, the Muscle Shoals rhythm section.
Yeah.
That's who played on my first 2 albums.
Oh, wow.
So I've worked with those guys and the Muscle Shoals horns, and yeah, it's great. It's great. It's just a little old place. It's you wouldn't think that they would have cut all those hits down there. It's just,
yeah.
If you rode through it, you wouldn't think in a million years. But it's a groovy place, and there's some great people, and there's still a great scene down there. The guys that are still alive in the Muscle Shoals rhythm section are still playing, and they've got, I guess, today's version of the Muscle Shoals rhythm section is great.
Yeah.
They still got the Muscle Shoals horns. They have the backup singer. They put out a documentary on Muscle Shoals that was really popular. So a lot of these kids from Europe, or that a lot of rock, young kids that want to be hip, that go to Muscle Shoals to record. So they're still going down there.
That's pretty awesome. So going back again, as a young guy, spending time in Georgia, going to school, what was that like for you and school life and being a young guy? Did you start singing young, or were you just being a kid?
Just being a kid.
Yeah.
I sang, I had a little bitty record player. My mom and daddy never listened. It was funny. I'm jealous kind of kids. I know a lot of players that grew up playing, that their daddy or their mother taught them how to play, or that they had a family band or whatever. Well, that never happened to me. My daddy never bought a record in his life. My mama, I cannot remember my daddy ever listening to the radio except to get the farm reports, or my mother. I didn't grow up in a musical family at all, but I did walk around singing, I guess. I had a little transistor radio, and I listened to the radio. I carried it with me a lot of places and sang along with songs, but nothing like, hey, I'm going to grow up and be a singer. Nothing like that ever really crossed my mind. I thought I was going to be a baseball player, so I really didn't think about, doing music for a living. It wasn't until I got to the University of Georgia. I went to Georgia to play baseball, but I wasn't getting to play. I was sitting on the bench, and I couldn't stand it. So I had an offer to sing and make a little money. I went to baseball practice one day, and I told my coach, I said, I can't stand sitting on the bench, and I got a chance to go make some money singing. What do you think I ought to do? And he put his hand on my shoulder. I remember it like it was yesterday. He put his hand on my shoulder and looked into my eyes and said, Tony, if I was you, I would go sing. So that was the end of my baseball career and the start of my singing career. And it was probably the best advice I ever got.
So you had never really done a whole lot of singing up until university, just You know, just
just
listen.
goofing
Yeah.
around. You know, in high school, and I'm sure they do it in Canada too, when somebody's mama or mom and daddy would go out of town for the night or the weekend,
Yeah.
and all the kids would come over and have a big party and drink beer and raise Cain and then clean the house up, you know,
Yeah.
so the parents wouldn't know that there was ever a party there. Well, we would do that. And I had a friend that had a guitar, and we would sing at those kind of little things, you know, for our friends,
Yeah.
but nothing serious, you know, just goofing around. And that was the closest I ever came to, you know, being a singer, was just goofing off in those things. But
Yeah, that's great.
you know, I guess I was always able to sing, though. I sang in church. You know, I was raised in the church. I went to church every Sunday and sang. So, you
It
know,
was just something you
my
did.
daddy's side of the family, there was no music. My daddy's side of the family didn't go to church. There was no music, no pianos or anything. My mama's side of the family, my grandmother could kind of play the piano a little bit.
Yeah.
And sometimes we would sing hymns, but nothing serious.
So do you remember your first paying gig in university?
Yeah, I do actually. I think we made like $15, something like that. I don't know. It wasn't much.
Yeah.
But we got to where we were busy. I had a partner. We had a duo, I guess, and we just would play at fraternity parties, sorority parties. We would play at the Holiday Inn there in Athens, Georgia.
Oh yeah.
You know, like just seems like everybody started at a Holiday Inn
Yeah.
in that part of the country anyway. And we had a big following and had a lot of fun. But yeah, like I said, I made enough money to pay my tuition. I bought my first house when I was 19 years old, so I was making enough money to buy a house.
Wow, that's good.
And
That's great.
but you know, it was just a little place, but we called it was at 560 King Avenue, and they named it the 560 Fun Club. So basically we were just partying and going to college. We were typical college kids.
Yeah.
Those are the good days.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
It's funny when you're mentioning the whole Holiday Inn gigs from years ago. And I remember being even young and traveling down I-75 and seeing the Holiday Inns along the highway. And they always have some type of marquee who's playing there that weekend and all that. But yeah, that was a total scene that just doesn't exist any longer.
Yeah, well, it was just a good place to play. I mean, and the Holiday Inn in Athens is adjacent to the college. I mean, it's like across the street.
Yeah.
And so it was neat. It was a total college. Our whole following were college kids. It was just a total college scene there. And the Holiday Inn was the best place in town for everybody that would hold everybody.
Yeah.
You know, they built a big line. We were pretty popular, and they made an addition to the Holiday Inn, and it was a big room. So it was fun. It was, like I said, it was like just a party all the time.
Yeah, that's excellent. So moving to Nashville, what was that like? Just getting into town? Did you have any connections there at all when you got to Nashville, or are you just starting from scratch?
Basically started from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
I knew one guy, but he wasn't really that connected. I think he was traveling in some road bands, but he wasn't like connected over at Music Row or anything. You know, he wasn't like a session musician or anything like that you'd see around. It was awesome.
Yeah,
it really was awesome, man. It was like moving to Oz. I was totally starstruck and just thinking, man, I'm in Nashville. It was great. It was great. And then I remember I started getting a little bit of work singing demos. Man, I really pushed myself out there. the thing that I figured out was I figured out where all the movers and shakers drank.
Oh yeah.
I found out where the most popular happy hours were that they hung out, and I went to those places, and I just kind of just met everybody, and that's where people got to know me. And then once I got started getting hired singing demos, my voice got passed on those demos tapes. My voice got passed all over town. Publishers were pitching the songs, and producers and record people were hearing those demos.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, hey, that song's okay, but who's this guy singing? That's how I got my record deal. Capitol was through demo. I didn't do a bunch of showcases. I think I did 2 showcases.
Yeah.
And the second one was at the Bluebird Cafe, and that's where I got my record deal, was at the Bluebird. But yeah, man, I remember doing a demo at Tree International, which was the biggest independent country publisher in the world at the time. It's owned by Sony now. It's called Sony Tree.
Yeah.
But I remember they had offices that had balconies on them, and they would open these French doors, and you could hear music coming out at any given time. People were listening to songs. And I remember singing a demo there. I got paid $20 for it, and I walked outside to get in this. We had a '63 Volkswagen and a 1959 Ford station wagon, and I remember going to get in the Volkswagen, and I heard my voice coming out of one of those doors out on the Music Row. I started crying. I thought, man, I finally made it. I'm in Nashville. I'm on Music Row. My voice is coming out. It was a glorious day.
I bet.
So it was. That's the way Nashville was and still is to me. It's funny. I did a television show yesterday called Larry's Country Diner. It's on the RFD network.
Yeah, know the show well.
And Mac McAnally was one of the guests. Janae, gosh, I can't think of her
the
last
fiddle player,
name.
Janae.
Yes.
Yes.
What's her last name? I can't. Dang, I can't remember. But she was there. Anyway, on the way to the, I've just done an acoustic album of greatest hits, just an acoustic guitar, and Sheila and I were on the way to the show, and we were listening down to those acoustic tracks, just checking the vocals, making sure everything was okay before we did background vocals on them. And so I reached over, she was driving, I reached over and patted her on the leg, and I said, thanks for moving to Nashville. I mean, we still feel that way. And we've been here since 1982, and we just still feel like, hey, gosh, we're in Nashville. We still can't get over it. It's a miracle, man. We're living the dream. It's just crazy. We still feel that way.
That's great. Yeah, that town there's something special about it for sure. And, there's some changes to it, but there's still that vibe and that buzz that happens there that doesn't happen anywhere else.
I wish that some of these guys and girls today could feel what it was like back, in the 80s, especially early. It's a whole different scene. Like Music Row basically doesn't exist anymore very much. They're building condos and hotels, and it's just not like it used to be. It used to be you could just walk in somebody's office pretty much, and now there's guards at the doors, and you have to check in, show your ID and all that. That never happened when I was coming up.
Yeah. Good old days.
Yeah. And we hung out together. The artists hung out together too, and we were all pulling for each other. And I guess they might do that today. But it was more of I don't know, I hate to say a club, but it was kind of like a fraternity, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
I remember the year we came out with our first record, it was Keith Whitley and Randy Travis and Marty Stewart and Steve Earle.
Wow.
And we were all buddies and hung around together, and so
yeah,
it was neat times.
Now you did a lot of jingle work as well. Was that before you were doing
before, during, and after.
Yeah.
It was, yeah. I started off doing a McDonald's commercial that was for the Super Bowl.
Wow.
And once I did that one, the people heard me sing, and they thought the ad agencies got hip to me, and I think they just liked my raspy voice or whatever it was. I started getting calls. Anytime anybody needed a T. Graham Brown sounding guy, they would call me pretty much. I did every soft drink. I mean, I did Dr. Pepper and Coke and 7-Up, and Mountain Dew and Budweiser, Stroh's, Miller, Coors, every car and truck, every fast food, Hardee's, Burger King, Taco Bell, McDonald's.
Wow.
I did Almond Joy. Sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. I did that for 7 years. I've done everything, man.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I've done a lot of jingles.
That market pretty well doesn't exist much anymore, does it?
No, not like it was. Every now and then you'll see on television or hear on radio like an original jingle, but now a lot of it is they license old songs.
Yeah.
Like you'll see, especially a lot of these drug ads, these pharmaceutical ads, you'll hear they're doing a Fleetwood Mac song, or they're doing some old soul song, or they're, I think it's cheaper for them to license stuff than it is to write an original jingle and then have to pay a singer royalties, residuals.
Yeah.
I think it's all, it's like everything else. It's all boils down to money.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Back in the day, I used to work for a couple jingle companies and produce jingles, and it would be steady work.
Yeah.
And terrible jingles sometimes, but the clients
would. Yeah, a lot of those jingle places that I would work for and with are gone. They just shut down. And these are some big companies, that did a lot of national work.
Yeah.
But hey, I get called every now and then, but it's not like it used to be.
Yeah.
And were they done out of Nashville, or did you do those did you record everything in Nashville for them, or did you have to go elsewhere to do it?
Well, we recorded a lot of them in Nashville, and some of them in Chicago, some of them in New York. When I was doing Taco Bell commercials for 4 years, I was actually on camera and singing, and we did all those out at either the record plant in Sausalito, out across the Golden Gate Bridge from San Francisco. There's a little community called Sausalito, and actually that's where Otis Redding wrote "Sitting on Dockler Bay," and some of them in L.A. at the Capitol Tower. That Capitol Records building that looks like a stack of records.
Yeah.
I remember I was doing one with Little Richard there. That's where I met Little Richard, was doing Taco Bell commercials, and we were great friends ever since. And I hate he passed away, but I remember we were doing a Little Richard Taco Bell duet commercial, and I called Dwight Yoakam up, and I said, "Hey man, do you know Little Richard?" And he said, "No." I said, "Do you want to meet him?" And he said, "Yeah." So I told him that we were at the Capitol Tower, so he was there. It seemed like in 10 minutes, he rode his Harley over there. He had a big time, and after the show, I remember he took me to eat at a Italian restaurant. The Taco Bell people, the ad people, would always provide a car and a driver, but I sent the driver on home that night, and I got on the back of Dwight's motorcycle. I remember it seemed like he ran every red light in Hollywood. Scared me to death. But we wound up over at his house listening to his jukebox all night long. And I remember that was a fun night.
I bet. Yeah, that would be very. So Taco Bell didn't provide Taco Bell for you?
Oh yeah, actually, they finally, the CEO, his name was John Martin. I went on to know these people and got to be friends with them over the years. he had this thing made up. It looked just like a driver's license. It had my picture on it, and it was a VIP card. And all I had to do was go in any Taco Bell anywhere and show them that thing, and they would give me food. So we would just pull the bus into Taco Bell's all the time, so the band could eat for free.
That's
that
awesome.
was great.
Excellent. So in Nashville, you got signed, and your first album came out. What was that like, hearing your first song on the radio the first time?
Well, golly, it was awesome. I remember I had a singles deal. They didn't sign me to an album deal.
Yeah.
Back then, they had a thing called a singles deal, and they signed me to a 6 singles deal, which means they would put out a single, and then they had the option to put out another one if they wanted to, all the way up to 6. So back then, they would a record company would put out a single on somebody, and if it didn't hit, they might put another. That was back when an A&R department was really artist development. There was such a thing as artist development that really was artist development. So I lucked out. The first single they put out, I think it went to number 39, but it was enough for Capitol to call for an album. The first single was called Drowning in Memories. It never made it to an album. But I remember Sheila and I got in that Volkswagen, and we drove to Kentucky, and we found this little bitty radio station. And I went in and begged the guy. I told him who I was. They didn't care. And I begged them to play this record. And I remember going out to the car and listening to it when they played. We were in the parking lot.
Yeah.
So that was the first time I ever heard, a record on Capitol record. We had put out a couple of little records in Athens, Georgia, that were pretty popular back then.
Yeah.
But that was just, hometown stuff. But to hear a record with Capitol Records logo on it getting played was really special.
I guess.
And it is for everybody. You ask people and they'll say, oh, I pulled the car over on the side of the road or whatever. But actually, we found a little radio station and begged them to play it and listen to it in the parking lot. So that's the way we did it anyway.
Yeah,
That's cool.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. So how soon after you started having singles go out that you actually hit the road? Did you have to do a lot of the radio tour stuff and right away, or were you hitting the road, or are you just waiting after a couple singles got out?
No, they put me on the road before the first album came out. They put out that song "Drowning in Memories."
Mm-hmm.
Was like I said, it went to 39, I think it was, and then they put out a song called "I Tell It Like It Used to Be," and it was a big hit.
Yeah.
And that's when they had me making, recording the rest of the debut album, which they titled "I Tell It Like It Used to Be." But it's funny, we finished that album in Muscle Shoals, but we cut "I Tell It Like It Used to Be," that track, in Nashville.
Oh, wow.
And so we did it at Woodland Sound.
Yeah.
It's not even there anymore, I don't think. But no, we did the horns and everything there in Nashville. And then to finish the record, we went down and we cut 9 other tracks down in Muscle Shoals. And then, the second single was a hit. The third and fourth single off that album were number 1. So, they had me touring. And then my manager put me on the road with Kenny Rogers when Kenny Rogers was like the biggest thing on the planet.
Wow.
And so we played every major arena in North America. This was before stadium shows. Nobody was playing football fields or anything like that.
All arenas.
But we were playing, Kenny Rogers was selling out 20,000 seats. And on Sundays, we would do a matinee and he would sell out a 20,000 seat place. They'd turn the house and he'd sell out the second show. So, I mean, we were rocking, and I was opening the shows. And then a lot of times they would have a middle act, and it would either be Dolly Parton or Barbara Mandrell, or I know we did a bunch with Ronnie Millsap and Kenny and Glenn Campbell, Lee Greenwood, Eddie Rabbit was on a lot of them.
Oh yeah.
That was really fun. You know, I'd never seen anything like that. They threw me out there. I'd never played anything but little nightclubs, and then bam, all of a sudden I was opening up for Kenny Rogers in front of all these people. But I just kind of made it up as I went, you know, and just jumped on in there and baptism by fire and had a blast. I didn't know any different. You know, I didn't know how scary it should have been, I guess. I was just having a blast.
So what did you learn from Kenny, seeing him every night doing his thing? Obviously, there must have been.
Well, he did the same thing every night. He said the same words. He told the same joke, word for word, and all that. He had it down to a science. I don't know if I'm quite that stuck to a perfect routine like he had, but I'm telling you, he knew what worked. He had figured out what worked, and he just went with it. And he never showed any fear or anything like that. I just try to get out there and have fun. And like y'all were saying, it looks like I'm having fun. Well, that's because I'm having fun. And if you're having fun, the people are having fun. And I'll tell the same jokes a lot of times. And I kind of know that I do, in that respect, I do kind of know what jokes are funny and people like, but I get bored telling the same stuff. But no, Kenny had it down to a science, and he was such a sweet guy. He treated me like a king. He treated my band great. He always had a gourmet chef. We had great food. He let us eat with everybody else. He was great to his crew, to the sound company. Everybody ate the same food. It was big time, man. It was as big time as you could get. And I'm glad that I got to see what it was like, what a really big time show was like. Because the sound and lights and everything, I mean, it was big time. It was fun.
That's the first big show I'd ever seen, I think, that production when you were on that show with him doing the arena shows. Man, that was something else. I've never forgot that. It was huge. You're right.
Yeah. For the day and time, it was as big as it got. It was really fun, especially for a kid, man. It was. I wasn't a kid. I didn't have Vitello like it used to be till I was 31 or 2 years old, which is pretty much unheard of these days. If you're not starting out when you're 21 or 2 or whatever, it's hard to. There's not that many 30-year-olds that are starting out with their first record.
Yeah.
But back then, I was able to. So I wasn't a kid, but I was really a rookie. I'll say that.
Yeah. The one thing I remember, I did a couple opening spots at Kenny Rogers shows, and it was just, kind of a local act I was working with. But the one thing I do remember with Kenny is that he made a point to go out and say hello to you, and shake your hand, and to everybody backstage. And it was just kind of shocking. You just didn't expect that. And that stuck with me forever. And just remember him just make sure he came out and thanked us and shook our hands. And it's like, wow, I've never had any artist do that before.
Well, he just knew what it meant.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like I said, he was very kind. And he had a semi-truck trailer full of clothes, like a traveling rolling closet.
Yeah.
And he would tell me to just go in there and pick out some clothes. He would give me clothes. I mean, stuff that was way expensive, like $5,000 jackets and stuff like that. And, I could just go pick something out. At the time, I could fit into them. I was the same size. Kenny and I were the same size. It's kind of a stretch I still have them. And it's not like it was then, but
yeah.
No, he was a nice guy, man. He was, and he had a huge jet. And every now and then he would fly home a lot. And he had a house that was probably 10 miles from my mom and daddy's farm.
Wow.
Out in the country. And he would always fly into Athens, Georgia. And then somebody would pick him up and take him to the farm, which was probably 25 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes he would say, "You want to go home tonight? I'm going home tonight." And I'd get on that jet and we'd go. He didn't have like a little Learjet. He had a big jet, like airlines have.
Yeah.
It was really something. Totally gold plated everything inside it. It was really gaudy, but it was fun.
That's pretty awesome. So what do you find now, if you're looking back at those days touring with Kenny and doing live shows back then, what do you feel the biggest difference now between doing shows now than doing shows and touring back then?
Well, I'm not, like I said earlier, I'm not gone as much.
Mm-hmm.
We're playing much smaller venues. We really like playing. Every now and then we'll play like a big show like that.
Yeah.
We play a lot of theaters, small theaters that they've restored that used to be movie theaters back in the 30s, and the community has restored them. We do a lot of those. We do fairs.
Yeah.
A fair amount of fairs. Everybody does. It's pretty much a deal where we do fairs, we do festivals. Just about everybody does that, unless you're a big touring act and having hits right today.
Yeah.
Basically, everybody does the same circuit, fairs, festivals, those theaters, civic centers, a town civic center. It's a smaller deal, but I'm like I said, man, I'm having more fun now than I've ever had.
That's great.
I think I'm just relaxed, I don't worry about it. I'm not having to push as hard.
You mentioned you did Larry's Country Diner this week. I've seen you on there several times. It's true. That's a nice, relaxed atmosphere, and everybody has fun on there too. And it certainly has helped a lot of country music artists that we haven't seen in a long time be exposed, and it's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Well, it's about the only place you can get any FaceTime on television. Those country's family reunion shows are awesome.
Yep.
Just getting in the same room with all your heroes like that, it's really, like I said, I wish people could feel what it feels like to be around. They're dying. There's so many of them dying and I'm glad Larry Black, he started that thing like 20 years ago or so, and he's gotten so many people on tape now that are not here anymore, and it's great fun hanging out with these. I feel a lot of times, or when I started anyway, I felt totally out of place. I was kind of second guessing myself, like, what am I even deserve to be here for? But over the years, I've just kind of been accepted into the group, and now I'm one of the old ones. So now we're the old guard, I was talking to Steve Earle Steve Earle came through and did the Opry, I don't know, a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about when we first started, and I remember Steve, and it was 1986, and Steve called it the great credibility scare of 1986. That's how he described it. And we were talking about that. And Steve, he's bald headed with a long beard now, and I don't look the same either. And it's fun. I really miss Keith Whitley being around, and
Yeah, I bet.
I see Marty Stewart a lot, and I see Randy Travis oddly a lot too. Randy can't really talk, like he used to, and it's but he knows he can communicate, and his wife talks for him, and I'll be sitting there with Randy telling old stories, and he'll he'll smile and laugh, and I mean, he knows what you're saying. He can understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we you know, it's a whole. We're the old mossbacks now.
Nothing wrong with that. So you've been doing a lot of gospel music in that as well in the last bunch of years. Really enjoyed a lot of your music there as well. What kind of got you into recording gospel?
Well, I don't. Sheila had been after me to cut a gospel album for a long time, and I cut this album called Forever Changed, and it's not really so much a gospel album. I didn't think as it is a positive message album. That's what they're not what you would call a typical gospel songs.
Yeah.
A lot of them, but it turned out I really had fun doing it, and I had never called up any of my friends to sing on my records with me. George Jones and I did some stuff. I sang on some of his songs, and he came in and sang with me. But other than him, I'd never called up anybody. I got Michael McDonald to sing some harmonies one time.
Oh, cool.
I got Emmylou Harris to sing some harmonies one time, but not much.
Yeah.
But somebody said we were cutting Forever Changed, and we cut this song called He'll Take Care of You. And somebody, I don't remember who, mentioned, Vince would sound good on this song. And I thought, well, I'll call him up. I mean, I knew he'd do it. We've been friends since the 80s. And so I called him up, and of course he said, yeah, he never says no to anybody anyway. So yeah. I knew he'd do it. And he's got a studio at his house, so it's easy for him to do things like that. So he sang a duet with me and played a guitar solo on it, and that kind of got the ball rolling. I called up Leon Russell, the late great Leon Russell, and I have been friends since the 80s, and I had sang on a couple of Leon Russell's records. Yeah. And we did shows together. We were friends, we'd go out to eat and all that. So I called him, and he came over to the studio. Boy, he had fun too. Everybody was loving on him so much, and he just had the best time. And I called up the Oak Ridge Boys, and it was great, man. Everybody I called up immediately said yes. I called up Jason Crabb, one of the greatest gospel singers alive. Yeah. Jimmy Fortune sang. Sonia Isaacs from the Isaacs was on there. Some other gospel acts, and I got Steve Cropper to put some guitar on a song called People Get Ready. It was just fun. It just turned into this thing. And then it got a Grammy nomination, which was totally out of left field. And it got a Grammy nomination in a category called Roots Gospel, which I didn't think it was rootsy or that gospel-y, yeah. But anyway, so I don't really do a lot of gospel. It's just that I did that record.
Yeah.
I mean, I go to churches fairly often and sing and tell people about my recovery story from drugs and alcohol. I tell that story, and I'm not really a preacher or anything, but I go in and I'll sing some hits for them. But people like me, it seems strange you would be singing I Tell It Like It Used to Be in a church, but I do. They just like, I'll ask the pastor of the church, what do you want me to sing? Oh, I want you to sing some of your hits. And yeah, so we'll do that, So I do churches. I do a lot of cowboy churches. Those are really fun to do.
Yeah.
Which it's mainly music. Usually in a cowboy church, the preacher only speaks for 11 minutes. I don't know if that's a rule or what, but it's just about everywhere you go, it's 11 minutes. So it's not like you're getting, preached to for an hour.
Yeah.
They'll always have a band, and it's fun, and so I do a little bit of everything, man. I get to play all kinds of places, all kinds of music. I just have a good life. I'm telling you, I'm very happy. My wife and I are very happy. I tell you what, once I straightened up, boy, my marriage got better. Everything got better. So I highly recommend it if anybody's having problems out there. I think straightening up is a good place to start.
Yeah, that certainly helps. Now, appreciate your time. A couple questions I wanted to try to wrap up on, and it's a question I like to ask a lot of people. Do you have a venue or place out there in the world that you've never performed at that's always been kind of on your bucket list and never had a chance to play there? Do you have one of those places?
Wow. Well, I'd love to play Carnegie Hall. I'd love to play Radio City Music Hall, Madison Square Garden, somewhere like that, big in New York. If the number one fun place to play is the Ryman Auditorium. That,
Sure.
To me, that's the greatest venue in the world. I still get nervous when we do the Opry there. I've done a couple of, I would say, real show. One of the most fun shows I ever did at the Ryman. I opened up for George Jones, and it was packed, and we had so much fun that day. I don't think my feet ever hit the floor. It was just a wonderful time. But yeah, I guess somewhere like that, some classic venues. I've never played those places before.
Yeah, and anywhere in the world that you haven't traveled to that you've wanted to go and perform or visit?
I've never been to Japan. I'd like to go to Japan. I've never been to Australia. That'd probably be fun too.
Yeah,
I bet that symphony house that you see in Sydney. I always see that classic, looks like clam shells in a row. I'd love to play in that place.
Yeah, not too many. You don't hear too many people, especially country performers playing in the Sydney Opera House. I've done a tour through it once before, and it's a pretty unique I never thought of it being a multi-venue place, but there's multiple venues within there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and all different sizes, and there was a little concert going on, and got to see a little bit of a classical thing going on there, so that was kind of neat. But yeah, it's certainly an iconic a venue and someplace that would be really neat to play. On my list for sure. One thing I was going to mention real quick, when I was doing a little bit of research, it was interesting. I'm not sure how much touring you did or have done in Canada, but I was looking at your list of your hits and where they charted, and a lot of your songs charted really high here in Canada. You'd see where you were charting on one song, and it was quite a bit higher in Canada. It was certainly had a strong following up here.
Yeah, I love Canada. I haven't been to Canada as much as I probably should have. It's been rare actually that I've been to Canada to perform. I'm thinking that maybe, no kidding. Well, somebody needs to call me up.
Exactly.
I know we went to Calgary. We played that thing over there.
The Stampede, yeah.
We played a few places, but I'm telling you, man, not that many.
Yeah.
We had some good records in Canada, but I mean, I really like Canada.
Well, we'll have to
I remember we did a Christmas train in Canada one year, and they put a band together for us. And Sheila and I remember we slept on the train, and we would stop in these little communities, and they would open up. They had a built-in stage, and they would open up a box car, and we would get out and sing, and then we'd roll on down to the next little community, and the people would come out, at the railroad crossing and see us. That was fun. But
yeah, that's still going. They're still doing that.
Yeah, that was fun.
Good. Well, we appreciate your time. And as I said, both Brian and I are big fans, and talking about that concert in Vegas, and that was honestly definitely one of the top concerts in my memory, and enjoyed it, and it was just so much fun, and it was great having you on the podcast. And is there anything coming up in the future now that you want to talk about?
Well, I'm going to put that Acoustic Greatest Hits out. We did a deal with Time Life, and they're putting some of our stuff out on streaming platforms that had never been out there. And that's one of the albums that's going to be out. I have this show called Livewire on Sirius XM satellite radio.
Yeah. That
I play live cuts from people's live albums. So that's on every month. They broadcast it, I think, 8 or 9 times a month. So I'm
That's great.
on a channel called Prime Country, and people can go to tgrahamBrown.com, we have a cool Facebook page and Twitter and Instagram. It's all under T. Graham Brown. So check out our Facebook page, and just keep up with us that way. And I always have the listing of when the Livewire shows are going to be airing, the dates, the times, who my guests are. So excellent. That's a lot of fun too, by the way. I would just thank Sirius XM for letting me do that. That's just great fun to do.
I bet.
So
do you record that?
Yeah,
just
that's
in
all.
Nashville?
And I'm sorry?
Do you record that show in Nashville for XM?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we do it in Nashville. And I went to New York and did one at their headquarters in New York because I was up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do them in Nashville.
Awesome.
It's great. It's a lot of fun, man. I've never done anything like it before. And that's just like I was saying, man, I'm having more fun now than I've ever had. I'm getting to do a lot of cool stuff, and I thank God for it every day.
Excellent. Well, we're happy for you, and look forward to seeing what's coming up in the future. And hopefully we'll see you up here in Canada doing some performing as well. And if we're touring around, we'd love to say hello and come see you live.
Thanks,
again.
Darren.
Yeah.
I appreciate y'all having me on the show, man. Y'all are great. Y'all are perfect. Y'all ask some good questions.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, and we'll hopefully get to meet up at some point. I know Brian and I have been chatting about getting to Nashville. As soon as they open the border, we might be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come see us.
Yeah.
Come see us.
Like to. Take care of yourself.
Okay.
Thanks
Thank
again.
y'all.
Yeah. Bye now.
Bye-bye.